Hey viewers, welcome to my orchid world. As summer has set in, it's time for our beautiful Vandas and Vandas orchids to bloom. You can see some of them from my collection. I have both hybrid and species Vanda and Vandas orchids. Many of them are in buds, they have not bloomed yet, and some are in bloom and some have already faded away. Most of them are mounted or potted in my collection. Some are there in full sun, some are in shaded in my shade house. So we will look into the basic care of Vanda orchids, how you should take care of them, how you should maintain the temperature, the humidity, their watering schedule, everything. We will discuss everything in this video. I hope this video will be helpful for you. Maybe you can take away some tips from this video to take care of your own orchids, your own Vanda orchids. So let us begin our video. Vandas grow well in high light conditions. They need very bright shaded light for proper growth. Place your Vanda orchids on the eastern or southern side of your house or your shade house so that they get the brightest light. Bright light is essential for Vanda orchids to bloom properly. Check the leaves, and if you see that the leaves are somewhat dark green, it shows that the Vanda orchid is not getting enough sunlight and you need to shift them to a more brighter location. Less light conditions will lead to no blooms in Vanda orchids. Vanda orchids are heavy drinking orchids. They need lots and lots of water. So just sprinkling or spraying water on the Vanda orchids or on the roots is not sufficient. You need to soak them in water, and most importantly you need to soak them every single day. This is the main reason why Vanda orchids do not bloom. So we need to water the Vanda orchids every single day. If you forget or do not get time in the morning, ensure that you water them in the evening so that your Vanda orchids keep blooming. And if you see your Vanda orchid is not blooming, the main reason will be watering. It is not getting sufficient amount of water. Vanda and Vandas orchids are high humidity orchids. They need high humidity, minimum of about 70 to 90%. 90% and above is also okay for Vandas orchids. They need high humidity for proper growth of the orchid, of the Vandas orchids, for proper growth of the roots, the leaves, and all parts of the orchid. To provide the necessary humidity through the Vandas orchids, the provision of a simple humidity tray is not going to work, because a humidity tray is placed below the pot where the orchid is growing. In case of Vandas orchids, we grow them in slated baskets. We have hanging roots which is not going to be stable if we place it on a humidity tray. What we do is take a big container and place it on a stable place and hang the Vandas orchids above this container. The water from this container will evaporate and provide the necessary humidity to our Vandas orchids. In this way, we will have the necessary setup for Vandas orchids and provide the necessary humidity to the orchids. You can hang multiple Vandas orchids above the container, and if the water goes below a level, you can refill it with more water. Hybrid Vanda orchids do need fertilizers. They are actually very heavy feeders. You can use a growth booster, which I have already recommended in one of my previous videos. They need heavy fertilizer. So use the growth booster during the growth period of the Vandas, which is the typically the summer season. Use the growth booster in once in 15 days, and when temperature starts to cool down, use the bloom booster. Species Vanda orchids do not need any fertilizer, and they grow on their own and bloom on their own. Species Vanda orchids like the Eridis odorata, Rhynchostylis retusa, the Vanda testacea, and many others do not need any fertilizer. Avoid using fertilizer during the rainy days, which will make the fertilizer wash away from the Vanda orchids. Vanda orchids should be grown bare rooted without any media around the roots. These orchids need proper air circulation around the roots, and hence placing any media will hamper the growth of the orchid. So I have few orchids growing in slated baskets, few Vandaceous orchids mounted on trees, as you have seen in many of my videos. They are growing well because they have these hanging roots which trap moisture from the atmosphere for the orchid, and placing any media around the roots of the Vandaceous orchid is going to stop the orchid from growing properly. The roots will not grow, and in turn the orchid will suffer. It may not bloom, it may not grow properly, it may not grow roots, and hence you know that if your orchid is not growing properly, you need to do something about the roots. You need to check if there is media around the roots, if it is clogging the roots. So you need to make them free, make them bare rooted, and your orchid will grow properly. The bloom time for Vanda orchids is generally the springtime. They put out spikes in late winter, and the spikes take quite some time to develop fully into flowers. They generally put out spikes in late January to February first week, and by March end or April they start blooming. The Rhynchostylis retusa is one of my favorite Vandaceous orchids. You have seen an entire dedicated video to Rhynchostylis retusa, to its care and everything about Rhynchostylis retusa. Please do check out that video if you haven't watched it. The Rhynchostylis retusa is worn by girls in my state as a natural ornament, as a natural bun flower. They tie it around their bun in a rounded shape like this. The stem of the spike is quite sturdy, quite hard, and it doesn't break easily, and it can be worn in a round shape around the bun. So, and it has very nice fragrance. It adorns the place where it blooms. I have both hybrid and species Vandaceous orchids. I have more species orchids than hybrid ones, and the blooming time for my Vandaceous orchids is from April, and it continues till May. The bloom period for Vandaceous orchids is not very long. They last up to maybe 2 weeks, at the most 3 weeks, so they are very short lived. So to summarize, Vanda orchids need high of everything: high light, high quantity of water, high humidity, and hybrid Vanda orchids need heavy dose of fertilizer. So take good care of your Vanda orchids. Please leave your comments in the comment section how you found this video. Please give this video a like and do subscribe to my channel. Thank you for watching.